welcome to another study. Wow, that is an amazing Bible. That's awesome. Family heirloom. I like it. That's an old school Bible. It's awesome. That's awesome. Is it King James?
I looked it up one time.
I'd be surprised if it.
All he had back then.
Yeah, I was gonna be surprised if it wasn't King James.
New Standard.
Oh wow.
Something like that.
Yeah. You like the pictures of
Huh.
I just like it here with my grandma.
Very cool. No, that's a cool Bible, man. It's got a coloring book. That's awesome.
He's in the kitty section in the back.
It says right here, he got it for confirmation in August of 59.
59. Wow. That's amazing. All right, so we've been studying the 14 apostles, and if you'll remember, there's 12 original, and Judas Iscariot, who we'll talk about later, not today, but another week, he's gone, and so they replace him, so that's a 13th apostle, and then Paul is the 14th apostle, okay? So that's where we get the 14 from. This is not like I'm teaching heresy and blasphemy over here when I'm saying the 14 apostles. There's the original 12, and then there's 2 more, okay? So it's really 14 apostles. So if you'll take your mind back a couple of weeks ago, we did the intro to first century Israel, and we kind of set that stage where all the actors will be performing on that stage. And we talked about architecture, agriculture, geology, geography, climate, all sorts of cool stuff, all right? If you haven't seen that, you can just go here to the website, and it's the #1 video on the website, okay? These things are also on YouTube, so if you want, you can search for the 14 apostles on YouTube. It'll pull it up on there too, okay? Number 2, we then went through Andrew and Peter, right? And Andrew was already following John the Baptist, and John the Baptist had followers. We'll even call them students or disciples. And at some point, he then said, yeah, I'm saying things. Oh, wait. But actually, there's the dude right there. Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. So he had people following him, but then he said, oh, no, there's the guy right there. And so Andrew and the other person who was writing that book, John, he always liked to vaguely refer to himself, or like kind of not refer to himself, or he would just outright call himself something amazing, like the disciple Jesus loved, or the disciple that beat Peter to the tomb, or whatever. And so Andrew and John followed Jesus, and then they followed him back to the Sea of Galilee, and they brought him to Peter. So Andrew and Peter are brothers. They brought him to him, and John and James are brothers, and so they brought it to them. And Jesus said to all 4 of them, y'all come on, let's go. Follow me, okay? So having said that, we now have 4. We're already at 4 of the 14, okay? Today we're going to add Philip and Nathanael. So let's open our Bibles, and we'll look at Philip and Nathanael here. We're going to start in Matthew 10. Matthew chapter 10, in the first couple of verses there. And again, I'm using the Modern English Version. Use whatever you want. Use the 1959 version. Whatever version that is. Cool. I like it. So he called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out, to heal all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease. This is Matthew 10. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these. First, Simon, who is called Peter. Remember, Simon is his real name. It's Andrew and Simon. Jesus names him Peter, which, remember, vaguely translates to, hey, Rocky, right? So Simon, who's called Peter, and Andrew, his brother. James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother. Remember, those are the sons of thunder. We talked about those last time, the sons of thunder. Philip and Bartholomew. Bartholomew, we're going to talk about that. Nathanael is his actual name. Bartholomew is another name he gets called by, and we're going to explain why here in a little while. Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector. James, the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus, which is a super Greek name. It's like if you're Italian And you're like, that's a Luigi. Like, that's just so Italian. So, like, his name is Lebbeus Thaddeus. That's like super Greek, right? Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Okay, so there's your list of 12. If you're ever curious who the 12 were, I mean, you go to Matthew 10. Boom, there they are. Okay? Now, the one thing it doesn't say is Bartholomew, which I'm going to cover why it's Nathanael and Bartholomew. Okay, so that's the only thing. But when you know that connection, you'll know that that's what that means. There's not like a Bartholomew in one list and then magically no Bartholomew, but now Nathanael in another list. It's the same person, and we're going to look at why in a little bit. Okay, so the next place that we're going to go to is Mark chapter 3. Mark chapter 3. And we're going to go to verse 7. Mark chapter 3, verse 7. Okay? Mark 3:7. Now, Jesus has just healed a man with a withered hand, with he's got some sort of handicap or cripple that he had going on there. Jesus has just healed him. And so in verse 7, Mark 3:7, he says, Jesus withdrew his disciples to the sea. So they were in the synagogue, and they did the healing, and he's like, okay, guys, let's now go retreat. Come on with me. So they retreat to the seaside, to the Sea of Galilee, also called Lake Tiberias, also called Lake Gennesaret. Okay, those are multiple names for one body of water. Okay, and a great crowd followed him from Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea and from beyond the Jordan. So we see Jesus saying, "Hey guys, we've kind of done our deal here. Let's go camp. Let's go huddle up. Let's go huddle." Well, as they're leaving, these crowds just come pouring in. Okay, that's where we are. And those from Tyre and Sidon, which is the Mediterranean coast, a great crowd, when they heard what great things he did, came to him. Verse 9, he told the disciples to have a small boat ready for him because of the crowd, lest they should crush him. So this is some fanboy stuff going on here. I mean, you've seen the videos of like people getting crazy over Elvis, or I'm not sure why, over Justin Bieber or whoever.
You can watch videos of like girls in the late 90s or early 2000s, like over Backstreet Boys dancing. I'm talking like
Yeah.
having a seizure, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
William Hung from American Idol.
Yes. Yeah. People are going crazy here, and there's hey, get a boat ready because I don't want the crowd to crush me. I mean, that tells you the movement of how many if you've got a couple of dozen of people. If you got 100 people, you're talking thousands of people to have that much going on. Verse 10, for he had healed so many that all who had diseases pressed on him to touch him. When unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him, crying out, "You are the Son of God!" But he sternly ordered them not to make him known. So these people are coming, and they're possessed, and they're walking in front of him, and the demons within inside are like, "Oh no, it's Jesus, that's the Son of God." And he's like, "Shh, just get out of him." He's like, "It's not my time. Let's not make this a big deal." But it's obviously a big deal already because he had to get into a boat so he didn't get crushed. Okay, you feeling the moment of what's happening here? So let's go to verse 13. He went up into the mountain and called to him those whom he desired. So he's of that thousands of people in that throng of that great crowd. He's like, okay, this sea is messed up, so we're probably going to like sail a little bit around the shore, hop out, and we're going to climb up on a hillside, on a mountainside here, okay? And he says that he called to him those whom he desired, and they came to him, and he ordained 12 to be with him. Remember we talked about that previously, where those are the executors of his mission. Those are the people who are going to carry out the mission going forward. Okay, that's what the ordained means. He ordained 12 to be the executors of his will and to be sent out to preach and to have authority to heal sicknesses, to cast out demons. Who was there? Simon, whom he named Peter, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, whom he surnamed Boanerges, meaning sons of thunder.
That's not a compliment, is it? Sons of thunder.
I'm going to say probably not.
Yeah, because nowadays we would think it would be.
Yeah.
But in that content, I don't think it was.
It's not like we're saying you're like,
Kind of poking fun at, okay, Sons of Thunder.
No, I'm thinking because it's probably
Yeah.
well, also, I mean, if you see now, you'd be like, oh, okay, Thor, you know, the god of thunder or whatever. Like, we kind of associate it with like being more like superhero-ish, but I think Sons of Thunder just means that they were hotheads.
Yeah.
They're real hotheads. Okay. Andrew and Philip. So notice Peter and Andrew get split on this list in Mark chapter 3. Peter and Andrew are brothers, but they're split. Andrew and Philip are listed together, and Bartholomew with them. So Andrew and Philip and Bartholomew, you see how those three are listed together? We're going to talk about that. And Matthew and Thomas, they're normally listed together. And James, the sons of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him.
There's at least 2 Jameses, right?
There's 2 Jameses. 2 Jameses, 2 Judases. Yeah, 2 Judas. I mean, like again, we got 3 Chris's in the group. I mean, it's like
Yeah, it's out of a small group.
out of a small group, we got 3 Chris's here. I mean,
That's the story of my life.
yeah. So the fact that they have name, you know, and we also have Simon called Peter and Simon the Zealot. Right? We had John, the brother of James Zebedee, and John the Baptist. So, you know, it's the same thing here. You know, we got Mike, we've got Michael, we got Mikey. I mean, we can try to make it whatever we want, but it's still a lot of repetitive names. And the same thing that we think, well, oh my goodness, couldn't they be more creative with their names? But could we be more creative with our names?
Some people actually are.
Yeah.
Some people are creative with them. Most times.
Yeah. So, you know, you just have to think, oh, we got Scott, you know.
I work with Scott.
Yep. So I would say Gary and Brad are probably more unique than the rest of y'all's names, and then the rest of Chris is pretty popular. Brian's probably
Brian's
way popular. Michael, one of the most common names ever, and Scott, you're probably just behind me and Gary on less used. So anyway, that's curious. So we want a side trail there.
So there's 2 Jameses. Okay, we go off on a whole week.
Yeah. But I want you to pay attention that Andrew, Philip, and Bartholomew are listed together. Andrew's not listed with his brother. Is there a reason for that? Well, let's go over here to.
What verse are we on? 18?
We're in Luke now.
Oh, we're on Luke. Okay.
Yep.
Luke, I am your father.
We're in Luke 6.
Okay, Luke 6.
Luke 6:12. And again, if you go back to Luke 6:6, he's healed the man with the withered hand that we talked about. Remember, I just mentioned that was in Mark. They're saying the same thing in Luke. And then looking around at them, he said, "Stretch out your hand." And he did so, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. But they were filled with madness and discussed with each other what they might do to Jesus, because he healed on the Sabbath day. They're now furious because he healed somebody on the Sabbath day.
But they were looking for any type of.
Yeah, they were already. Yeah. So we're going into verse 12. Luke 6, chapter 6, verse 12. In these days, he went out to the mountain to pray and continued all night in prayer to God. When it was day, he called for his disciples, and of them he chose 12. So you see right there, we're talking the fact that there was probably in the order of, I'm going to use a different color here. There was probably in the order of about 120.
Oh, wow. So he actually had tryouts.
Tryouts.
Well, I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
He chose them out of
120.
And so he had a smaller group that he pulled out of there.
Well,
And
no, it's good to know. I always figured he just chose 12 that he knew he wanted. No, he brought.
So he's got a bunch of people there. And part of the reason that we know that, we will see when we talk about Matthias, the 13th one, because it says somebody who's been with us since the beginning.
Gotcha. So he had to earn his keep, but eventually he got it.
Yeah. So it's definitely they had more than the 12, but for whatever reason, when you go here, Luke 6:13, when it was daytime, he called for his disciples. So he called for his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom he named apostles. But what's the difference between a disciple and an apostle?
Apostle witnessed, disciples heard about it. Something like that.
All right.
Disciples were followers.
If you'll remember, we talked about this a little while back. In Greek, the word for disciple or disciples is mathete. And that's where we get the basis for mathematics,
Gotcha.
right? And mathematics, we have crossed the lines now where you associate mathematics with arithmetic. Arithmetic is 2 plus 2 and all that stuff. But mathematics is just the study. You're a student. So mathete is student. Okay, so if you're a disciple, you're a student. If you are an apostle, you have been sent out on a mission. You've been sent out on a mission. In this context, when you have 120 and there becomes 12, we see that of the 120, they were still students. He didn't say, I've got my 12, the rest of you 108 people, get out of my face. Did he say that? Did we see that in the scriptures? No. He simply said, these 120 about are still going to be my students. But these 12 that I'm plucking from them are going to go above and beyond just being students. They're going to actually become my sent out missionaries, my sent out ones to carry on that banner. If you've ever watched, like one of my favorite movies is The Patriot, Mel Gibson, right?
With Mel Gibson?
That was Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger. And you can see then, you can watch the Civil War, and you can see when we had these, two armies just faced each other. The Revolutionary War, they carried the flag, right? And then someone, he got shot and he's falling down, and someone else picks up the flag, carries that banner. That would be, you're saying, you are the flag bearer. You're carrying that thing because that represents our push this direction. And if you go down, you're taking his place. And that's kind of it's not exactly, but you get my point. That they're not just a soldier. These are just the students. These are the ones who are in charge to make sure that we're continuing this push forward of whatever Jesus is doing, which at this point they weren't 100% sure. But he said, you, the 12 of you, y'all are with me. And not only are you with me, but you're going to continue what I'm doing. Okay.
The purpose for that, because the battlefield would get so smoky from the muskets, the flag would help you find your regiment to reduce friendly fire.
Oh, yeah. That's probably,
You can get back to your group.
it's probably good to know that then. Know which flag belongs to you.
Yeah. That's the A flag. It's like,
See them shoot the direction.
Yeah, for real. All right, so that's Luke 6:13, whom he named apostles, right? And then go to verse 14. Simon, whom he named Peter, and Andrew his brother. Now the brothers are back together here. And Andrew his brother, and James and John, brothers, and Philip and Bartholomew, right? Which we'll call Nathanael here. And Matthew and Thomas, they're listed together. James the son of Alphaeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. So you're getting this idea that he's kind of grouping these people. And I've kind of mimicked these groupings in our sessions through this study. And it's because he has done this in each of the Matthew, Mark, and Luke, 3 of the 4 Gospels so far. That he's paired them up like that, except for Andrew and Mark is listed with Philip and Nathanael, Philip and Bartholomew. Okay? So let's go to the next one here. We are in John chapter 1. John chapter 1, verse 43. John chapter 1, verse 43, it says, the next day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, follow me. So before we say that, right above that, he's talking to Simon. He says, when Jesus saw him, he said, you are Simon, the son of John. You shall be called Cephas, or Cephas, which is Peter. You're Rocky. You're little Rocky. Okay? And if you imagine Rocky the movie, I can just see him just being like, I got a nickname. I'm somebody. Yeah, I'm somebody, or whatever. Okay? So we see here, he just names him Peter, and the next day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip. Now, where did he find Andrew and Peter? We're in John 1. So where did he find Peter?
By the water?
By the water. It says he was walking along the shore.
Fishing or not?
Yeah, they're probably fishing.
Okay. That's the only reason I said that. Fisherman,
Yep. So he's found Peter, and he said, if you go back up to verse 39, it says, so they came and saw where John and Andrew came and saw where Jesus was staying and remained with him there that day, for it was about the 10th hour. It means it's very late in the day. One of the two heard John speak and followed him, John the Baptist speak and followed him, was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, we have found the Messiah, which means the Christ. Then he brought Peter to Jesus. And when Jesus saw him, he said, you are Simon the son of John. You shall be called Cephas, or Cephas, which means Peter. The next day he went. So in this account, in John's account, it's a little bit different because he doesn't say that he encountered him on the shore of Galilee. He says that he encountered him likely near wherever his home was. Which, let's be honest, remember going back to that map that I showed you in week 1? It's like 1.5 miles long. Capernaum is like 1.5 miles long, and it's like 400 yards deep. You're on the seashore anyway. You stand out your front door, you could probably look around the corner, you could see the water from there, okay? They're making a differentiation. It's different, but is it really? But these are the kind of things that people, when they don't understand the geography of that area, they just say, oh, well, these 3 people said that they found him on the seashore. This one disagrees completely, so we must throw out all 4 of them. Like, hold on, stop, time out. Time out. What you're not understanding is it would be like if I'm standing on my front porch and I see Mr. Mike across the street and I wave, hey, Mr. Mike, and I wrote, hey, I saw Mike today from my front porch. But he writes and says, I saw Brad in his front yard.
One of y'all's lying. One of y'all's a liar. Porch yard. Which one is it, guys? Huh?
It's still the front of my house. And it's not his house, and it's not the street. So it's like slightly different, but not really. Right? So let's not get caught up in that kind of stuff. I want to. When you're reading, you need to be critical. You need to be logical. I was having this conversation the other day. I'm not one of those people who's going to say, well, I have faith in God, and that's it. And now I've turned my brain off and checked it at the door. No. Like, I feel like the more I'm involved in my faith, the deeper intellectually I have to dive into the Word. And so when you see that kind of stuff, you say, okay, well, this one says that he wasn't on the seashore, found him wherever he was. Oh, but where he was, his house was in Capernaum, and he's within, 1,000 feet from the shore to the highway, basically. So he's here. So go to verse 43, John 1:43. The next day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee. Guess what? He's there. He's already there. Okay? I think what John was saying was he wanted to go to a specific spot because he had somebody he wanted to encounter. Okay? So when you say he wanted to go to Galilee, you're not just like, it wasn't like between verse 42 and verse 43, he left and went to Iraq or something, right? He's still there. But he wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip. I think probably the translation for me, if I was translating it, may be better or more understandable In Brad's translation of it said, the next day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee to specifically find a man named Philip. And he found him and said, follow me. That's more along the lines of what I feel like this is really pointing to. That's not what it says. That's Brad's interpretation. But you can see how I could get to that point. I hope. Okay. So he found Philip and said, follow me. Who's Philip?
The guy.
He's just some random dude. He's not a brother. Peter and Andrew, James and John, distant cousins of Jesus. Like we've kind of had these kind of loose family connections. Like I've got family in Illinois, and I'm connected with them on Facebook. I see their stuff occasionally. And if you're watching, hey guys. But like I don't know them. I haven't been to Illinois to do a family reunion since I was 12 years old. It was 30 years ago. My grandparents still go almost every summer, every other summer, and still see the family. So they've kept up that way, But I don't really know them. But if I saw them in the street, I'd be like, hey, how you doing, Jeremy? Or whatever, right? So it's the same kind of deal where like Andrew and Peter and James and John, they're distantly related to Jesus, to Mary and Joseph, okay? And by ergo to Jesus. And so it wouldn't have been like some random dude walked up and said, Bradford, let's roll. If you're walking down Lowetta and some guy pops out of the Sonic and says, hey, you're Bradford. Come on, let's go. And you'd be like, get away from me, weirdo. Like, you wouldn't follow him, okay? But here we and then we've all.
Everybody else sign autographs. Calm down.
Yeah, I don't sign autographs. So he found Philip and he said, follow me. So go to verse 44. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. That kind of gives us a little more insight. Do you think Jesus, being fully God and fully man, knows who everyone is? Of course. But what's the first thing that Andrew did whenever John the Baptist said, that's the Lamb of God who's going to take away the sin of the world? What did Andrew do?
Did he tell Peter?
He went and told Peter and brought Jesus to him. And Jesus said, Peter, let's roll. Actually, I'm naming you Peter. Okay, come on, Rocky, let's go. And Andrew and Peter are from where? Nope. There's a village there. Bethsaida.
I just looked at it.
Yeah. Bethsaida, which remember means house of the fishermen. House of the fishermen, right? Which is a fitting name for Andrew and Peter, the fishermen. But who else is also from Bethsaida now we figure out? Philip. Philip's from Bethsaida. Who do you think gave word to Jesus to go visit Philip?
The brothers,
Probably.
Simon,
Probably not even Peter, I would guess. I mean, maybe. But probably Andrew. Andrew is... So I know we've already talked about Andrew and Peter, but I want you to see the interactions here. Okay? Andrew is still bringing people to Jesus. You seeing that? You picking that up? Okay. Here we are in verse 44. Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip then found Nathanael, which they spelled different than my Nathanael. I like this spelling better. It's wrong, but I like this spelling better.
It's wrong.
Philip found Nathanael. It's Nathanael, which, by the way, the A-E-L at the end there is a reference to God. So if you add like Hallel means praise. Hallelujah is a reference to Yahweh. See how they add the hallelujah, praise to Yahweh, praise to God. And so Nathan was with David. Remember that? David and Nathan were friends. Nathanael is just basically saying one of God. Okay?
But you don't like that stuff.
But I just always remember this spelling. Okay? And Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him, of whom Moses in the law, as well as the prophets, wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Now hold on, let's put a pause, time out right here. What does this tell us about Philip, and what does this tell us about Nathanael? Philip said, this guy is somebody special. Okay? I've been studying the scriptures, so I'm not completely unaware of what's happening here. And B, I got a buddy who we talk about this stuff. I got to get him in here immediately. I got to make this happen. Now, notice what he says. Go into verse 45 there. John 1:45. And he says, Philip says to Nathanael, we have found him of whom, what? Moses wrote in the law. Now, we just studied Exodus. We just finished Exodus. Where in there did you see Moses writing about Jesus?
Well, he used the name. Right?
He did not use the name. He did not use the name. So how are these guys making this connection that Moses was writing about the law, yet Jesus? Like, how are these guys connecting this?
I know, like the Isaiah 53, you can tell they're talking about Jesus, but they don't say Jesus.
Right.
You can tell. You can just tell. Well, I don't recall.
That's written after this, after Exodus.
I don't really recall what Moses said.
If you'll remember, they made the tabernacle. Okay? And up to this point, they now have the temple. They've created the temple in Jerusalem. The temple itself is just a means by which, it's the process by which you were going to be able to approach God. The tabernacle, the same thing. You remember? Because of your sin, you are outside of God's presence. Work with me, right? So I'm going to draw this. I'm going to draw it again because I want us to cover this so that you understand culturally, historically, what's going on here. If you'll remember, the tabernacle and the temple both, the entrance is from the east, right? Entrance is from the east. This is a sacred rectangle. The outer rim of the tabernacle itself, or the outer wall of the temple. God's presence is inside here. Okay? And he's in the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies. HH. Okay? The same thing is in the temple as well. And so, in order for you to get to God, who gave Moses the commands to make the tabernacle, and later the temple, said, in order for you to interact with me, to even come into my presence, you must. What's the first thing they had to do when they came in here? Do you remember?
Was the sacrifice the first thing? Or
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
A blood offering for your sin has to be dealt with right off the bat. Once you have a blood offering done, what do they do next? Wash their hands. Cleansed the residual of their sin off of them. Because killing, slitting the throat of this animal, whatever it was, and getting blood everywhere and cooking it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You're going to have to clean yourself afterwards.
Is that why before Jesus was crucified, Pontius Pilate cleansed his hands of the situation?
Not exactly, but I mean, you could make an allusion there. A little bit different. He was doing a cultural, fine, my hands are clean of this. That's on you guys, is what he was really doing there.
Cleaning his hands there is different, more of a metaphoric
Right.
type.
And then, if you remember, there was the table of showbread, the incense altar, and then it had the menorah, the lights. Okay? And we talked about the fact that once you enter into this outer area, your sin has to be dealt with. You have to be cleansed, and then you have to be in the presence of the senses of the bread, the smell. The bread would symbolize taste. The incense would symbolize the smell, and the menorah would symbolize the sight. And if you also remember, what was the holy priest, what was he wearing at the bottom of his robe? Little pomegranates and little bells. So it's a fruit, little fruit. So the priest had little bells. So when you're here, the priest is the only one that can go back into here, right? But the priest would be doing his job. And so not everybody can even go into here, right? Only some are going to go in here, and even less go in here, and only one goes in here. And that's talking about narrow is the way, narrow is the road. There's only one that makes it into the presence of God.
That's right.
Right? That's a narrowing down for sure. But the whole purpose of this setup was to say, again, this was all through the law that God gave to Moses. You know, this is the vows. Exodus 19. I'm going to take you to be my people now. Okay, so we're in a wedding ceremony. Exodus chapter 20. Don't cheat on me. Don't have any other people except for me. Right? Think about the 10 Commandments. We call them the 10 Commandments, but really those are wedding vows. Like, don't cheat on me. Don't make any other graven images. Don't use my name in vain. Like, to have and to hold from this day forward. I mean, think about it. Okay? So, this is the law that he gave, was saying this is how you approach to get to God. Now, the other thing that he's not saying, but they would know, and it's a given, is the prophecy from Genesis 3:15. The Genesis 3:15 is Adam and Eve, and they're getting kicked out of the garden because of the sin. God has given them clothing, and he says it's going to be pain in childbirth. For you, Eve, for Adam, you're going to have to work really hard to get the fruit of the ground to come up, the grains, the vegetables, whatever it is. You're going to have to work from the sweat of your brow. It's going to be toil. It's not just going to be work. It's going to be toil. And he says, oh, and by the way, there is one who is going to come through the line of Eve, and he's going to get bit on the heel. He's going to get injured. That means survive, but he's going to get injured. He's going to get hurt. But he will ultimately crush the head of the serpent. He's going to defeat Satan. And that's the Genesis 3:15 promise. So when you take the Genesis 3:15 promise and you put this is how you approach God, what is God saying? There are still a lot of steps for you to be able to come into my presence. This one's not here yet. Come into my presence. Remember, this seat is not called the judgment seat. What is this seat called in here? The mercy seat. Come into my presence, but you've got to clean yourself. I can't be in the presence of sin. So you've got to sacrifice for your sin. You've got to cleanse it. You've got to come in here and be prepared to be in my presence. But there's one coming who's going to change all that. Okay? So that's the background. So let's now go back to John chapter 1, verse 45. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him of whom Moses in the law, okay, because the law includes the first 5 books, okay, as well. Of whom Moses in the law, as well as the prophets, Isaiah, wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. He calls him out right there and says, this is the dude. This is the one. This is the guy who fulfills this and this. If you're making a checklist, the ability for a person to fulfill both prophecies, it's only happened in one person, and that person's name is Jesus. Philip gets it right away. And he says, oh boy, I bet Nathaniel's going to be excited about this. Nathaniel! Texts him. You know, come over here, man. I got to tell you something. So Philip is trying to tell Nathaniel, man, we've talked about this. You and I have looked at the scriptures, and this dude, he's got both check marks. No one else has done that. He's got both check marks. He's the one. Okay? So go to verse 46. Nathanael said to him, now again, this is his friend. What does Nathanael say here? Does he say, yeah, we found him. Woo! No, Nathanael says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Can anything good come out of cut and shoot?
Is that why God the Father chose to send him there, you think?
Yeah. Can anything good come out of Montgomery? I mean, whatever,
Spring or whatever.
or wherever. I mean, that ain't New York City. That ain't Paris. That ain't. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, wait a minute here. I hear what you're saying, and we've talked about this. But you're saying Jesus of Nazareth?
Or you could say Compton, California, a place like that.
Yeah.
Straight out of Compton?
Straight. I see what you did there. I see what you did.
Something good. I'm not saying like people that are famous.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy people.
Yeah, yeah. So, interesting. Well, let's go to Isaiah 11 real quick. It's in between John, where you are now, and Psalms. So if you get to Psalms, you've passed it. So Isaiah 11, and it's closer to Psalms, obviously, than it is to John.
I was just there. It's like right next to Proverbs.
Isaiah 11. Verse 1. Isaiah 11, verse 1. And there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse. Now remember, Jesse has David. David has Solomon, blah, 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 who are also both Mary and Joseph a lineage in. Matthew chapter 1 gives us the lineage. Okay? So you see here, there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of God. He shall delight in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge by what his eyes see, nor reprove by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and reprove the fairness for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with a rod of his mouth, and with his breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and faithfulness the belt of his waist. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb. So he's going to put things at peace, which are antithetical to each other. Okay? The leopard shall lie down with the young goat, not to eat it, but just to rest. The calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play by the hole of the asp, or the snake, right, the viper. And the weaned child shall put his hand in the viper's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. In that day there shall be a root of Jesse, who shall stand as a banner to the peoples. For him shall the nations seek, and his rest shall be glorious. In that day the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, who shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. He shall set up a banner for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The word shoot there does not mean a gun or an arrow that's being shot. It's talking about the branch of a plant, right? Have you ever grafted things into a plant? So whatever, that's a little shoot coming out of there, and you can cut that off and whatever. Okay? That word shoot in the original Hebrew Aramaic is netzer. And it's where we get the same root word that is the name Nazareth. It's where we get the name Nazareth. Okay? So it is a nothing place. During that time, it probably had 300, 400 people. The nearby palace city where likely Joseph and Jesus worked to build the palace city. Because remember, they were craftsmen. They were skilled laborers and craftsmen. Was the nearby town about 3 miles away called Sepphoris. And Sepphoris had like 30,000 people. But most of them were from the Roman Empire. They weren't locals. So Nazareth is a nothing town. It's not even listed in the 15 to 20 cities that Josephus the historian even lists. It's not even listed. It's a nothing town. 300 or 400 people maybe. I mean, that's half of my graduating high school class. Yeah, I mean it's like
We're at 1,000, give or take.
that's a lot of people. So three times as many people. You had 3 times as many people as Nazareth at that time. Remember, I told you Capernaum had 1,500 to 2,500 people at this time. Okay, that's smaller than Klein High School or Westlake or wherever.
The town where I grew up, or the closest town, had 300 people.
Probably knew all of them.
None of them.
Hell, you didn't know. You didn't know any of them. So small you couldn't find them. They're probably out on farms and stuff, spread out. Where was it? What town was it?
Bowling, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Never heard of that.
Google it later.
Does anything good come out of Bowling, Oklahoma? Just messing with you. So Nathanael says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? But here we see the prophecy from Isaiah. So if Philip and Nathanael have talked about this stuff, and Philip is saying, yes, we've got 2 check marks, we're good to go here. But Nathanael is not seeing it. Why is he not seeing it? Why do you think he's questioning? Like, Philip, what are you talking? Nazareth? Seriously? Foley, Oklahoma? Come on, man. Really? I mean, at least it could be at least it could have been out of like Norman or something. I mean, give me a big city with like a university and stuff happening. Like, what are you talking about, man? He had forgotten what the actual prophets declared in Isaiah 11 because he had cultural prejudice. And I'm not even saying he was racist or that he hated people from Nazareth or whatever, but think about us. We're like, Holyoke, I never heard of that place. And you're like, go Google it. I'm like, I'm probably not going to Google it, I'm honest with you. Like, 300 or 400 people in some podunk town in Oklahoma. Like, it's just, like, that's a couple hundred miles away. Like, what does it matter to me? Like, what are you talking about, And so he probably had cultural prejudice there. Do you get what I'm saying at all? Nazareth, like that little, like at least tell me he's from Sepphoris, 3 miles away. They got thousands of people there in a palace complex, and like, yeah, we're doing something. Like Nazareth, like really? Okay.
From Bowling, you would say it was racial prejudice.
Okay. So you'd have racial prejudice there. So we've got cultural, maybe even racial here. I don't know. Philip, by the way, is a very Greek name. I know it's in the Bible, and we see him in the 14 Apostles, but it's a Greek name. If you've not forgotten that Alexander the Great, right, Chris? Alexander the Great brought Greek language and culture to the region. Philip II was his dad. Alexander the Great brought the Greek, and the Romans just adopted the Greek language and the Greek culture that he spread there.
Philip means lover of horses.
It means lover of horses. So like Philadelphia means a city of brotherly love. Philip is basically lover of horses.
And Alexander's father loved horses. If you read his story.
Yeah. So we see here Philip's got this Greek. Okay, so he's what I would call cultured. So he could potentially say, yeah, I'm from Bethsaida, but like, but I'm also a Greek. I associate with the Greek whole thing. And I'm wondering if Nathanael is actually a Hebrew Aramaic name. I'm wondering if the Nathanael is saying, I have a Hebrew Aramaic name, but I really want to identify more with the Greek side. And so what Nazareth, like, come on, give me something good.
Something to work with here. Come on.
Yeah. Are you guys following with me? I'm just reading the scriptures. I could be wrong. Okay, but this is what I'm feeling as I'm reading this. This is the thought process that goes through my mind here. Okay, so Philip said to him, "Come and see." Like, yeah. I know you got questions. Come on, come and see. And that's actually the tagline for The Chosen, which is a television series. The Chosen. And Jesus is in that, but if you remember, the name of the series is called The Chosen, not Jesus. It's about the apostles. Okay? And so the tagline is actually come and see. And you can get a t-shirt that says come and see. But what does that mean? Well, that's what Philip told Nathanael when Jesus showed up. Come and see. Come see for yourself. Come figure it out. Okay? So let's give me a second here. I got another note. Let me see if it's right now or in a minute. I ran out of ribbons. I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay. Here, I'll put this right here and save it. So come and see. So Jesus then saw Nathanael coming. So Jesus didn't even see Nathanael. Jesus was brought to Philip, likely by Andrew, right? We got that gathered together. And then Philip brings Nathanael to Jesus. And Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said concerning him, here is an Israelite, indeed, in whom is no guile. You may have a different word there. What does it say?
Complete integrity.
The original word there, which I'll get to in a second, but Jesus saw Nathanael coming, and Jesus says, oh, there's an Israelite. That's a Jewish man right there. Nathanael, like I said, may have been trying to lean into the Greek with Philip.
Nathanael spoke Hebrew, is what it says. It says in Hebrew, his name means God has given. So he did identify with the Hebrew Israelites.
He did, but I'm saying he's got a friend with Philip there, so I'm wondering if he's feeling the pull
I think
from the two cultures.
was going over to the Greek side.
Everyone was going to the Greek side, and Jesus calls him out and doesn't say, "Oh, look, there's a nice looking Greek guy." He says, "What?" He says, "Here is an Israelite indeed. You can't deny this guy. He's a pure Jew. He's an Israelite." Nathanael couldn't hide. Jesus saw right through him.
He's got a big nose.
Yeah, he was foul.
And then it says here in the last part of it, here is an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. That phrase, when I looked it up and kind of retranslated it like I like to do, again, I'm not a Greek or Hebrew scholar, but there's sometimes definitions. So like, for example, right, this is like gray. Some people say, oh, this is gray-blue, or sometimes it's blue-gray, or sometimes it's gray-gray, or it's dark gray, or light gray, or whatever, right? So one word can mean different things, okay? It doesn't mean purple at all, but it's still, gray, but it's whatever. So when you look at this original word, I think this is a better word here. Guile. We don't use that word guile. Like it's kind of an underutilized verb in our vocabulary. Here is an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no being deceived.
Okay.
He's not going to be deceived. Remember, because he says, what's going to come out of Nazareth, right? Just come and see. And so then he walks up. Hold on a second. He walks up, and Jesus goes, oh, there's a real Israelite. And you know what? He's not going to be deceived. He's not going to take some random guy as the two check marks. He's not going to be deceived. He's going to wait for the real deal. Yes?
I think that's why I've heard people say for years to pray for discernment, because otherwise you can't be deceived very easily.
Correct.
So I think that's why he had that.
That's right. And then in verse 48, Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? He was like, you just read my thoughts here. How do you know me? What's going on here? Is this like a party trick? What happened here? How do you know me? And then Jesus answered him, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Now, I came home this afternoon, and I pulled into my driveway to get the groceries out of the car, and I looked across the street, and I saw Mike before he ever saw me because his head was back. And he was asleep, taking a nap. Okay? Now, if I walked up to him and said, hey, did you enjoy your nap? He'd be like, you saw me taking a nap? Like, what? You know. So here we see, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree out there, I saw you. Jesus knows. And Nathanael knows he's busted. I'm not going to be deceived. Jesus, this guy who I just met, just said, here's a real Jew, and he's not going to be deceived. But yet, he just totally blew my mind. Check. See the light bulbs going off? Verse 49, what did Nathanael say? Nathanael answered him, what did he say? In verse 49. We're in John 1:49. What good can come out of Nazareth? Why don't you just come with me? Just come see. And Jesus says, oh yeah, there goes a Jewish boy right there. He ain't going to be deceived. You know me. Yeah, I saw you when you were under that fig tree over there. Oh, you are the Son of God. Check. Right? You are the King of Israel. And Jesus answered him, because I said to you that I saw you under the fig tree, you believed? You'll see greater things than that. You're going to see greater things than that. And he said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Jesus immediately took Nathanael from a whatever Philip to you're in the inner circle. You're in with me. You're in that 12. You're going to see all sorts of cool stuff. And Nathanael very quickly went from, okay, fine, Philip, let's go meet this guy, to you're the Son of God. You're him, right? All right, let's go over here to John 6. Again, we're talking about Philip and Nathanael. Nathanael, we're going to come to it, / Bartholomew, okay? So let's go to John chapter 6 real quick. They're witnessing to Jesus. Jesus is witnessing about himself and who he is. Do not think, I'm in verse 545. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moses, in whom you trust. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote of me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words? He's talking about this stuff, right? In John 5:45, Jesus is declaring of what Moses wrote about the coming Messiah and the process by which Jesus meets and fulfills all of these items in the temple and the tabernacle, okay? Chapter 6, verse 1. After these things, Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, also called Lake Gennesaret. And a great crowd followed him because they saw his signs, which he did for the sick. So there's a lot of people want to get healed, right? And then Jesus went up on a mountain, and he sat there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was near. So what do we do at Passover, right? We have a lamb, and we have unleavened bread, and we have a whole Seder sit-down thing. You guys have done that with me before. But he's not in Jerusalem. He's over on the hillside near the lake. So, chapter 6, verse 5, when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming to him, he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread and that these may eat? So this gives us maybe an insight as to where they are. When you're looking at here, I'll draw it on the board. Let me erase this. We did the geography that first week, but remember, when you have the Sea of Galilee like this, right? Capernaum's up in here. The Jordan River comes in here, and then the Jordan River goes out the bottom. And then right over in here somewhere is where we know Bethsaida is located. Okay? We don't know exactly. There's some ruins. We're kind of not sure, but it's over here somewhere. And this is Capernaum over here. There is the Golan Heights, which are kind of these hills that are over here on this side. Okay? There's Mount Tiberias right here. That's a big one right there. And there's just kind of some smaller little hills, but there's some bigger hills on the Golan Heights over here. So when he says, go back to the text, after these things, Jesus went across the Sea of Tiberias, the Sea of Galilee. You see what's happened now? And a great crowd followed him. So the crowd followed him around because of the signs which he did for the sick. Now, I don't know where in here, okay? But I'm guessing it's closer up in this area, and here's why. Because when you go down to verse 5, when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming to him, he said to who? Philip. Where shall we buy bread that these may eat? Why would you ask Philip? You've got 120 guys. You've got 12 inner people. Why are you talking to Philip?
Because he's one of the 12.
Where do Andrew and Peter live? Capernaum. Where are they from? Bethsaida. Where's Philip from?
Bethsaida.
So if we are in, where are you from?
Enid, Oklahoma.
If we're in Enid, Oklahoma, which I've never been to, and you're with me, I'm saying, hey, Bradford, where's a good coffee shop?
I have no idea. I haven't been there since I was like.
But you get my point.
Yes.
Okay? So I'm saying Jesus says, Philip, hey, come here. We got to feed these people. Where's a bakery? Where we get some bread? Is that making sense now? When you know the geography and you know where Philip's from, we have an insight as to why Jesus might be asking Philip this question. You tracking with me? Where shall we buy bread that these may eat? He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. So Jesus already knows what he's going to do. But he says, oh, watch this, guys. I'm gonna mess with Philip a little bit. Philip, where's a bakery we can get enough bread to feed these thousands of people? I can see Philip going, in Bethsaida? So Philip, verse 7, John 6:7, Philip answered him, 200 days worth of pay worth of bread is not sufficient for each of them to receive but a little tiny bite. Just a little bite. If we had 200 days worth of pay and I bought that much bread, each of them have a little, that's thousands of people. Okay? And then in verse 8, one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, there's a boy, and he's got 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish, but what is that among so many? Here's Andrew getting involved again. You can almost see Andrew sort of being like, oh, it's okay, Philip. Like, there's maybe this, like kind of helping his friend out. Like, okay, that was tough, Jesus. Like, you just took Philip to the woodshed because you're asking him for help, knowing to test him, knowing that he's going to try to figure out, like, okay, well, can we afford? No, like, it's going to be 200 days worth of pay. So many people, and they would just get a little bit. And so you can see Andrew kind of jump in. Oh, I've got this over here, but it doesn't do as much good. I got some 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish, but what are they among thousands of people? And Jesus said, make the people sit down. And then we know that he then goes on and makes the miracle. Okay? But Philip and Andrew are involved here. And I think specifically that Philip and Andrew are involved because I think that they're on these hills close to Bethsaida. Does that make sense? Okay. Next one is, we're almost through here. Next one is John 21. Oh, I'm sorry, John 12. John 12. I said John 21. John 12, 20 through 22. Now remember, Philip, he's Greek. Talked about that. Says, John 12:20. Now there were some Greeks among those who went up to worship at the feast. This is the feast of Passover in Jerusalem. Some Greeks that went to, and they went up. Remember, they're up here, but they went up to Jerusalem. How did you go up? By going south? The mountain. Okay. And they came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee. Why did they go to Philip? Because he's a Greek guy. He probably looked like a Greek guy, talk like a Greek guy. So there's Greeks and like, oh, that guy, I could talk to this guy, right? Nathanael may have been standing there, but he looks like a Jewish guy. He's a Jewish guy indeed, as Jesus said.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, hey, what's this Jesus guy about? What's the story here, right? So, sir, we want to see Jesus. Philip came and told Andrew. I think Andrew is in the inner circle. And in turn, Andrew and Philip told Jesus. So we see here, Andrew and Philip, they're connected together. Now you see why in Mark, it lists Andrew and Philip and Nathanael or Bartholomew all together. Because they're very closely related, relationally, not in family, but in relation. Okay. John 21 now. John 21. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to his disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. He revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, in Greek it's called Didymus, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, James and John, two more of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Then they said to him, we'll go with you. And they went out and immediately entered the boat. But that night they caught nothing. Remember, Jesus was on the shore. This is after he had died and resurrected. He was on the shore and he had breakfast cooking, and he called them and made breakfast for them. But here we see Nathanael of Cana. What do you think that has anything to do with anything? We know where he's from now. Where's Cana? Cana is about 10 miles southwest of Capernaum. So it's over here, not far from Nazareth. Day's walk. Now here's what I want you to consider with me here. Let's go back to John chapter 1. I'm doing this on purpose. Let's go back to John chapter 1. And we see in verse 48, Nathanael say, how do you know me? And Jesus says, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus answered him, because I said to you, I saw you under the tree, you're going to believe? You're going to just see more amazing things than that, right? Now let's go to chapter 2. On the third day, there was a wedding in where?
I don't know.
Galilee.
In Cana of Galilee. Where's Nathanael from? Nope, John chapter 21 just told us Nathanael of Cana in Galilee. The mother of Jesus was there. Both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Cana was on Galilee.
It's not crazy far from the shore. My question is this. Galilee is the region. It's not like on the shoreline. It's that kind of region. This is Brad making a plausible, fictional extension of the scripture. Okay? It is possible that if Nathanael's from Cana in Galilee, and Jesus does this miracle of water into wine at a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and he called Nathanael just before, and Philip is there saying, hey, this is the person you need to meet, Jesus. It's possible that Nathanael is the one getting married at the wedding feast. If he's not, it's very likely he knows who is. Again, Cana, small place. couple hundred people. Either way, Nathanael is connected to the wedding. Okay? Who do you think got Jesus and the people invited to the wedding? I'm going to say Nathanael. Where then Jesus does his first miracle. And what did we see Jesus? The last thing that Jesus tells Nathanael here in verse 51, in John 1:51, he says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open, the angels of God ascending and descending upon the man of God." In verse 50, he says, "Because I said I saw you under a fig tree, you believe, you will see greater things than this." And then boom, chapter 2. What does he do? Chapter 2, what does he do? He turns water into wine.
True. The first miracle, right?
Yeah. So I think Nathanael is the connector between Jesus and this wedding and his first miracle. There's nothing here that specifically says that,
That's a good observation.
but that's what I think of the connection. Okay. And then the last one that I have for us tonight is Acts chapter 1, verse 12. Acts chapter 1, verse 12. Then they returned to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, which is a Sabbath day walk from Jerusalem. When they had entered, they went up into the upper room where they were staying. Peter, James, John, notice this, Peter and Andrew are split again. Peter, James, John, and Andrew, Philip and Thomas. Philip and Nathanael are split here. Bartholomew and Matthew. So Thomas and Matthew are normally listed together, and Philip and Bartholomew or Nathanael are normally listed together, but they're not here. And James, the son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas or Jude, the son of James. These all continue with one accord in prayer and supplication with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his two brothers. The thing that I want you to think about is this. Bartholomew, when you see a word, you've ever heard of a bar mitzvah?
That's a Jewish, like, maybe you're 13 or something?
Yeah. Yeah. So it means my son. Barabbas means the son of the father. So Ptolemy means son of the Ptolemy, which, do you remember the Ptolemy, Chris?
No, I don't.
It's the king of Egypt during this time.
That's the name of the king?
That's what they called him.
Oh.
So his lineage is not necessarily saying that he is an Egyptian prince, as much as it is saying he has some sort of Egyptian heritage in there somewhere. Now, if you want to get super specific and a little bit deep, remember, what did Jesus call him? What did Jesus call Nathanael?
An Israelite.
Yes.
Well, yeah, well, that makes sense.
He called him an Israelite.
Yeah.
And where were the Israelites? Where were they born from? Egypt. So if I'm a great Israelite, I will take my roots all the way back to the Exodus in Egypt.
Well, that's your claim to fame. But,
That's right.
The Great Escape.
So his name is Nathanael, but apparently his family thought that it was more important to connect to their lineage. It'd be like, oh, I'm connected to William Wallace, the great Scotsman or whatever, right? So Bartholomew, as he's called on a normal basis, may have been because he said, our family goes all the way back to such and such. Our family goes all the way back. It's a big deal. So there's only a few places they call him Nathanael. They call him Bartholomew on a regular basis. But it's really just kind of like his last name or like Rocky for Peter, right? Peter means the rock, the little rock. So this may have been their way of saying, Oh, Bartholomew, the one who's like his Israelite and goes all the way back to Egypt. Like that's kind of his thing. About the guy who, oh yeah, he was always talks. He was always all state running back. He just or whatever, right?
He was skinned alive in India.
Yeah, tradition holds that he was skinned alive.
And his symbol was a knife.
And Philip was crucified upside down as well. Just like Peter. So that's what tradition says. There's no biblical narrative that gives us that information.
You know how crucifixion works? I would have, the way it suffocates you because the wind is your diaphragm. How does it upside down?
Eventually, your blood vessels in your brain just bust.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing. Because the one supposed to asphyxiate or suffocate you.
Right.
Suffocate because the wind is your diaphragm, but upside down is completely different.
Yeah. It's still not good for you.
Oh yeah. I proposed to that.
Well, those inversion tables?
Yeah.
Sort of straight or actually lengthen your spine.
Yeah.
But man, they can be bad on your eyes.
Yep.
You gotta be careful.
Extra pressure in your veins and your eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
So we have good friends, different backgrounds, both excited to recognize Jesus for who he was and bring others along. Willing to talk to the people who didn't know Jesus, the Greeks that wanted to come and talk,
Right.
and also willing to work with the masses. Philip didn't say we should turn them away. He just said, "This is going to cost way too much money. We can't afford this, Jesus." He didn't say, "This is the stupidest idea, Jesus. We're not going to feed these people." Right? And think about the words that he said. He said, I don't know how we could possibly afford this. Even if we had enough bread, bought 200 days worth of pay worth of bread, we couldn't feed these people. He was trying to calculate it in his mind. On your chart there, it says that he was calculating or something like practical or something like that. He's trying to figure out how the math works.
Yeah, he was. Talking about Bartholomew?
Philip.
Philip was practical, helpful, literal, and confused. John 14:8 for the confused part. But he was literal, helpful, and practical. And Nathanael was skeptical, honest, and faithful was his characteristics.
So the question is, just like every week when we're doing this study, what does that look like in your life? Where can you be more open to bringing people in? Where can you be more open to being practically being practical to be the hands and feet of Jesus to those around you in need? Physical need, emotional need, friendship need, whatever it looks like. And what would Jesus say to you about that? What do you say? You think that's something special? With me, you're going to see more amazing things than that. What does that look like in your life? What is more amazing things? And shouldn't we expect that? If God is the great creator of all things, and Jesus, his son, is the savior of us, why are we settling for a passive mentality with Jesus?
Right.
We can't. We shouldn't.
We should expect miracles.
We should expect the things to come.
All miracles.
Yep. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for joining.